Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pancake Parlay, episode 80. I am your host, The Don, and I'm with my co host, Chowders. How are you today?
I'm good, Don. How are you?
I'm good. We are streaming live on YouTube right now. Remember, you can like, share, and subscribe our content. It really helps us a lot. And you can access our content on Spotify, iTunes, Libsyn, and on this YouTube channel, Marketing Movies. Today, we're going to be talking about quite a few things, a lot of news items. We're going to be talking about pretty much a majority of the CW universe shows. But first, let's just jump in straight to news about, some Stranger Things on Netflix. Isn't that right, Chowds?
Yeah. So Netflix announced that Stranger Things was one of the most viewed content, like specifically season three. It was viewed by 64 million households in the
Jeez.
first 4 weeks. 4 weeks, that's kind of crazy, man. But yeah, they said the hit series it's the hit series best numbers to date. Um, yeah,
It would be, yeah.
yeah, it's once again, it kind of shows that people love the show. I think I remember mentioning that I think it had the vast majority of people who watched the show watched it within that first weekend period as well. So it just goes to show that the binge model is still working. But obviously, another thing that we have been talking about on the show is the fact that I think Netflix will want to move away from the binging model, even though they probably don't want to, if that makes sense. Just be-
I'm assuming just because of competition. Because even like Disney Plus, to keep those streamers alive and to keep the money going month by month, it's easier and probably a better model money wise, just to kind of keep them on like a ongoing drip feed of content. So it's just instead of just being like, oh, I'm gonna wait and just until this that's what I assume what happened with Stranger Things season 3. People bought it for that month, or they got the 14-day free trial and just like watched
Mhm.
the rest of the season, like binge watch it as you just said, and just dropped it like right after. Like they got the content that they wanted.
Well, exactly, and I think given that Disney's kind of well, I mean, to be honest, the first set of people I remember that have kind of done it this way was um, the DC Universe streaming service because they're obviously drip feeding, their shows that they're making, their Titans, Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, that was coming out week by week, and it kind of makes sense because if you're, again, as we mentioned before, instead of having somebody watch everything over 2 days or 1 month, you can kind of get them to watch over at least 3 months, given that for every week, if you release an episode every week, over a 10 episode span, you kind of at least get people for those 3 months, and definitely 3 months if you're releasing uh, a 12 episode series. So it seems to be a pretty smart way to go about it. And the thing is, I remember mentioning it to a few friends, and they were all right, oh, I'll just wait for it to all come out. So I definitely think it obviously aims at the people who can't wait to watch a show, they need to watch it on a week by week basis, kind of how people were loved watching Game of Thrones week by week. I was one of those people
Mm-hmm.
till the show obviously failed. I went to the store and we went past in all the alcohol aisle and stuff, and they had the Game of Thrones special edition kind of whiskeys and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, that looks really cool. Too bad Game of Thrones sucks ass.
Too bad you really fucked it up right at the finishing line.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's good to see that the Game of Thrones model is still going strong, especially given the move. Especially given that, I don't know if you've heard that Kevin Feige, I think, is now headlining everything Marvel now.
Mm.
Um,
Which is
that
probably for the
that's
best because comics aren't doing so good. So
Well, yeah, but I mean, the thing with Kevin Feige kind of being promoted. I want to say as like the CEO, but like it's kind of crazy because he's going to be able to have like the larger influence, like not only potentially with like the Marvel stuff, but then maybe he's going to be able to have at least some influence over the Star Wars aspects of things. I think that's probably what they want to kind of do. It's like, hey, like he's doing such a good job with Marvel. Let's have him kind of overlook what's going on in the other departments eventually. Obviously, they're probably having him look at Marvel now, but I think eventually they'll want him to kind of look over everything because for example, Star Wars obviously is doing awful, and I think the movie's going to do really bad. That's my prediction. I think I've made it before. Star Wars Episode 9 is going to do bad. That's my hot take. I know it's not that hot.
Yeah, no, I think there's some people who kind of agree with you in that sense of just like maybe even just in particular, not even just like seeing it in the first weekend, it just kind of shows a message. Or some people have said they're gonna do the whole thing of just like they're gonna buy tickets to one thing but sneak into another thing. But you never know what's gonna happen with it because that's the thing. There's no hype for episode 9. Like we're pretty much 2 months away and no one cares. Like no one cares.
Well, I think you're the one who kind of pointed out like I think last podcast that they haven't really released like a trailer, like a big trailer to kind of hold people off or hold people on till November, December, or whenever it comes out. It almost feels like it's not coming out this year. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna hold off till next year. But I know that's gonna be a big mistake if they do that. They gotta release whatever piece of crap movie that they
the fun part of it is that pretty much like I think like 2 weeks after Star Wars comes out, Frozen 2 comes out. Obviously Disney film as well, and that I feel like it's just gonna be like overshadow Star Wars 100%. Like it's just gonna be gone. Like the most like pretty much powerful IP that did exist in film was just completely destroyed of these future films, and it's really
true.
It really is sad.
It's gonna be overshadowed by a movie that's like primary demographic is like underage girls. To be fair, like the I didn't mind the first Frozen film. I just didn't think it was like this amazing thing that people made it out to be. But that's just me personally.
Yeah, I know the animation of Frozen is obviously on point, but it's like everything else is kind of whatever. Like I guess the difference was she didn't fall in love with the guy; she just fell in love with her sisterly love, and I think that's the only thing that maybe would have been like different compared to the rest of the Disney stuff.
I'm more of a Tangled guy. I prefer Tangled over Frozen.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the woodworks coming out being like, yeah, Tangled was better. So.
Yeah, I personally think Tangled was better. But speaking of animals, and because that I remember that horse being like one of the best parts of Tangled. But another big thing that has come out is Jurassic World 3 is like getting back a lot of the original cast members from the old Jurassic Park film. So they bring back Laura Dern, Sam Neill, and Jeff Goldblum. I think Jeff Goldblum was in the second Jurassic World, right? I didn't watch Jurassic World.
He was for like literally just like it's more or less a cameo scene. It's just in the court case thing. Cause
what was it? He's just like, oh, don't clone dinosaurs.
Yeah, he basically just it was in that new movie to be like life finds a way, pretty much just to say that line in a way to be
really
like,
does he literally say that?
I don't think he said that line, but it's basically exactly what he said.
The same line,
like kind of thing where it's like these things are animals, and one way or another, they're gonna do whatever they need to do. Because the whole point of Jurassic World was kind of like they're even though they're cloned and artificial, they're still animals in the end. So we need to treat them with respect. That was kind of like the main crux of that movie, if I remember correctly.
Is that what Jurassic World was about? I thought Jurassic World
2. Jurassic World 2
was... Oh, 2.
Jurassic World 1 was more like, hey, people are bored about dinosaurs, so let's make a new dinosaur.
Yeah, and I
think that's how bad consumerism is, guys. So I feel like
it had an interesting premise. Like I kind of liked it. Like, oh yeah, like humans are so like I guess, in their hubris and being bored about like, oh, we literally revived things back from the dead. We're like, okay, cool, next, what's new? Oh, we're bored of dinosaurs now, and it's like, oh shit, we gotta make super engineered like dinosaurs. I kind of found whatever the big brain high IQ dinosaur to be a little bit bullshit. Like the whole, again, that's my kind of biology bias kind of coming into everything and being like, that's not how it would work out. But yeah, I think, especially given that like all the dinosaurs could talk to each other, that was weird. Like the
I don't
velociraptors,
even remember.
there was a scene. There was a scene where like they're just talking to each other, and it's just like, they wouldn't understand each other. That's not how that shit works. But anyways, that's
But
just
yeah,
me having general
either way,
problems.
main cast from the first movie is back, and I feel like that's a good step in the right direction.
I
Like
guess, but it just
even still to like Sam Neill doing some cool stuff. Maybe he's gonna be a cranky old guy being like, coming back. Most of these days they're just gonna be
Sam
like,
Neill. It's like, why do they keep bringing me back
it's just
into
like
these series?
leave me alone. That's the thing. And like I think the interesting part of it is I just want to see the old cast mix in with what is it?
The new cast.
Chris Guy.
All right. Oh yeah,
Everyone's favorite Chris.
I see. I was gonna say Chris Hemsworth, but not Chris Hemsworth. Chris Pratt.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like there might be chemistry between him and Goldblum. Um, so like
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
unfortunately.
that's probably the most important part, aside from the dinosaurs, of course. But what else can you do?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, there's not really much you can do. We'll just have to see whether it's any good. But speaking of other casting, there was also new casting for The Matrix.
That's correct.
Tell me more about that, because I remember there was like a unknown like male character that was casted recently. I'm not too sure who that is, but has there been any more?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. It's going full ahead. Obviously, the previous news was that the original cast was coming back. So Keanu Reeves is coming back. Um, I forgot the girl's name, but Carrie Ann Moss, she was coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had recent news, including that Neil Patrick Harris is going to be a part of the Matrix. Um,
Okay.
I'm just like, okay, then I'm assuming he's a villain, but as well as they cast actress Jessica Henwick, which is the only thing she's really been in is in the Iron Fist TV show, the Netflix Marvel show. So she's going to be in it as well. So I'm assuming then and I find this very interesting of who these characters are. They could be side people for all I know, as in like they're going to be part of the Matrix, and then they're doing their own thing. I feel like that could be an interesting point, or they're going to go full on like one of them is like the new one, and then Neo is like the old architect. Like I feel like it could be something like that. I have no idea what they're gonna do, but either way, I still can't believe this is actually real. I thought this was a joke like Matrix 4, but obviously it's not gonna be called Matrix 4. So weird casting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, we'll see where it comes. When all the like pieces of the puzzle comes together. I'm kind of hesitant just because like, the last couple of movies, um, that were made by the directors
The
whose names are,
Wachowskis, yeah.
yeah, the Wachowskis. I think what they did like that
Well,
weird
they did Sense
like,
8, which is like cool concept and idea. However, I think it was a kind of a big mess, and I guess what it tried to interpret sometimes when it, and especially I remember in that first season, it took a long time for things to get moving. It took about 5 to 6 episodes, so like midway through a season to be like, okay, we're all kind of connected, but can you explain it? So that was kind of annoying. Jupiter Ascending, a lot of style, no
yeah, that's the
substance.
one. That's the
Um,
one that I was thinking that
yeah,
I
and then
haven't
Cloud
heard. Like,
Atlas was like very much kind of like a Sense8, where it's like it was kind of confusing to see because that jumped with different timelines and saying we're all connected in a way. But and that's the thing. My whole thing is maybe they need they need someone to kind of hold their hand in a way of like they have these cool, unique ideas, and they need someone there to kind of overview what they're doing. I feel like some directors need this and some directors don't, and I feel like the Wachowskis probably need this. Because you get something like, for example, I love Speed Racer that came out around like in like 2008. Really good visual style. It's pretty much a really great interpretation of like a manga anime adaptation to live action, probably the most accurate I've probably ever seen.
Hmm.
And I really like it, in that type of way. So I feel like they need someone to kind of show them the ropes or kind of thing. Because like Jupiter Ascending was a mess in the end. They had just so much random elements, and I feel like if they had someone to kind of be like, cut this out and focus on this, I feel like it would probably be a better movie. So
Hmm. Yeah, like there's just a lot of like kind of good ideas, but they are not like put together in like I guess a cohesive way. Is that probably like a good way to kind of describe I guess those films?
for what I remember, it was so confusing. Where obviously there was like some people from Mars, or like, and they're like these rich billionaires of like
Hmm.
aliens, and they're just like, yeah, we want to buy off Earth because it's gonna be a good mining planet or something like that. And it was kind of like
Oh.
that, and then like, but then because they're royalty, but then all of a sudden they find out that Mila Kunis in Earth is actually royalty, and she's actually the next in the line to be like the queen. So then Channing Tatum's like, hey, I'll have to like help you to get to the place, and be like your actual royalty in the end. That was basically the movie. I just summed up more or
Huh.
less.
Okay. Look, I can definitely understand the difficulties of kind of putting together a story in a cohesive way because that's basically me. Like I've been trying to come up with a cyberpunk campaign for my for Dungeons and Dragons, and I definitely understand like having a lot of good ideas, but then having it kind of all come together in a cohesive way it definitely can be very tough because I definitely feel like I'm definitely an ideas person, but maybe like if I had somebody tell me, "Oh, this is how you should put it together," like that would definitely help me a lot more. So it'd be good to see if they're able to, come up with something really cool and really interesting to get people back into the Matrix and seeing how they can do it in like a modern context, right? Like, is it still going to be, um, you know, that kind of 90s futurism, or is it going to be like a modern take of like the Matrix? That's what I'm kind of
I
curious
feel like they
about.
have a really good out in the sense of like whatever happened in the new Matrix, because there was a reboot when like Neo went in or whatever. They
Hmm.
could easily just be like, yeah, this was like the new future, so they can easily update it to whatever the new medium is, and they're probably going to do some weird stuff of like, they're obviously going to touch on stuff like what is it, like social media stuff or whatever it is. Like I feel like
Mm.
that's going to be like the new virus, or maybe they'll hit on the actual NPC thing, but I doubt it. Like, be
No,
like,
I
oh
think
man,
I think that's
everyone's drones, like, or like everyone's information is connected, and you're all kind
well.
of puppets or something like that. Like I feel like
I mean,
something like that could happen.
that's a general like kind of cyberpunky trope in general. Like kind of kind of will make well in the context of cyberpunk it's usually like mega corporations, but in this it's like mega corporations that are controlled by AI.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean it's cool. I guess we'll just have to see where Matrix goes. I would like to see what they do with it. I'm just these days I'm pretty pessimistic about execution of ideas just because it seems
Well,
to
not only
be
that, but like like old ideas, but bringing it back to the new. Like we obviously saw what
yeah.
happened with Star Wars. Of course, you've got like maybe one to two like really good directors I think out there in Hollywood nowadays that do stuff with respect. Like once again, Cobra Kai shows respect to the old material and kind of continues that on. Or
One of my favorite
I forgot his
movies.
name, but you're probably going to touch on it. The guy who did Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, I was just about to say Blade Runner because that came to mind immediately when I thought about, oh, what is a modern film? What took an old movie and made it modern? And I'd love to see more movies like that. But yeah, like at least trying to like catch the fire while it's hot. Like let's jump into more. Let's do more, like Blade Runner and the universe of Blade Runner, and not wait like 50 years for like another film. Let's try and capture
Is that
more
a
about
shout
what
out
the
to
movie's about.
Zombieland 2?
Yeah, I mean, again, like like I love the first Zombieland, but what's going to happen in terms of the future of Zombieland? Like, unfortunately, because it took so long, like there's probably like a 10. When did the first
It
Zombieland
came out
come
like
out?
10 years ago. It was literally like
Yeah,
2010. I do remember that.
yeah. So the thing is, by the nature of which the sequel was created and the age of the cast members, like if they bring back the old cast members, they're kind of forced to write a story that's 10 years later. And I feel like a lot of those shows and films that do that kind of don't do a good job, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of stuck making a story like that, as opposed to, oh, let's make a film like 2 years later, and that film is far more cohesive and it works
And it's
together.
always
But
like, either they stayed the same and they never fulfilled something in the end. Like, something like
yeah,
Dumber and Dumber 2, where
exactly.
it's like the same, or it's like, like Zoolander 2, where it was kind of like, in the end, like we're all stuck in the same loop. So kind of like
Mm,
the things that resolved in the first movie, instead of having a new challenge, they're stuck in their old ways. And I feel like, I didn't really touch on it last week, but when I was watching Rambo: Last Blood, there is an evolution of his character, which I really do like. It's different, and there's more hurdles he's gonna deal with. He's old, he's gonna take medication, and that's a good, interesting way, and like he has a kind of a semi family, and I feel like that gives him a good out instead of him being like, yeah, I never changed, like, and I feel like, yeah, you need that evolution of the character, or else what's the point of having a new story in that chapter?
yeah, I mean, I remember there was like a slew of films that were doing like, for example, like I think it was Die Hard, right? There was like Die Hard 4 that came out. And I really liked Die Hard 4. Die Hard 4 was a great movie. But obviously it was like one of those things where it's like 1, 2, and 3 came out like, I don't know, I want to say a decade before.
It was like
And then
80s and
like
90s, and then all of a sudden, like, I think Die Hard 4 came out like 2004 or something.
yeah, and it was like a typical like, oh yeah, main characters are grizzled and old, and he has a daughter or whatever, and but like he has to go back, and like that's okay because it's like, okay, they had their sequel films, and then there was like this kind of semi reboot refresh, but then like Die Hard 5 came out and that did really badly. I didn't watch that film though. Something about his son or some shit like that. But yeah, there were a few movies that were like that, or at least tried to do that. I feel like Terminator also tried to do that as well, but in a very different way. But yeah, Matrix, we'll just have to see if it's any good. Um, in more casting news, Zoe Kravitz was cast as Catwoman in the new Batman film by Matt Reeves.
Which is that still coming out? Because like, yeah, I actually
Yeah.
I saw this really funny post. I follow a
Hmm.
Facebook page called posts that don't age well. And it's
Hmm.
like Ben Affleck being like, yeah, the Batman film was gonna come out in 2018.
Right.
Yes.
Look, I think he was obviously overzealous about it, given his divorce and all the stuff that was going on at the time. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I can imagine this film is definitely happening. I think whether or not they're able to get everybody they want to, that's the other thing. Like, because I think they were also like casting like a few people as well, like to play like the Joker and the Penguin. I think
Well, Jonah
what's the
Hill's
com
out. I think that's
Jonah
the
Hill.
most
Yeah, yeah,
recent
that's
news.
his.
Jonah Hill's
Yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
out of pretty
He's
much
out.
everything. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I remember reading like the initial post from it. And it's like, oh, he was like looking to be the Riddler, and I'm like, the Riddler. He is definitely a penguin, not a Riddler.
I
And
feel like they
unfortunately,
pinch and hold him. He's like, yeah, we know you want to do this, but like, you should be the
yeah,
Penguin. And he's just like,
you should be the
no.
penguin. 100%. I reckon that must have been the case. It's like, and he was probably like, no, I want to be the Riddler, and they're like, no, we don't want you to be the Riddler, like that. Like I'm guessing that's what it is. It's a shame because I mean, to be fair, like he's done a really good job at like kind of changing his image in the past couple of years, but I think obviously he doesn't want to be typecast as like his old like, oh, I'm the fat guy and I'm like either like a comedy or like a something or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can definitely understand like being an actor and not wanting to kind of just fall into the same traps of casting.
Well, that's Hollywood for you, so.
Yeah, it is, and unfortunately they'll probably find some other person to do it. But yeah, Zoe Kravitz. I haven't really seen. I feel like
You've
she
seen her,
seems
but
familiar.
she's always been in the background. Like Mad Max
Right.
Fury Road, she's one of the wives, Morton Joe's wives. Um,
Oh, okay.
I do that. If you ever watch Big Little Lies, she was in that as well. Um,
Oh, she's in X-Men First Class. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah,
I didn't
X-Men.
know that either, but
Yeah, X-Men First Class as Angel Salvador.
oh, she was the Angel Girl. Man, that's old
Yeah,
school gossip.
yeah.
She was the one at the
Di-
strip. She was the one at the strip club. If you
oh,
remember
oh, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Hellfire Club, which by the way they've no one's ever done justice to the Hellfire Club in the X-Men movies. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, Hellfire Club is like dope. You know what? One thing, just as a side note, since we just brought up X-Men, I've been reading Marvel comics. I know it's like
Oh
who is
my
this?
god.
Yeah, who is this Chowders? Right? I only read DC comics. By the way, everybody should be reading DC comics because it's good shit at the moment. Oh well, not everything, but like at least the Justice League stuff. Ooh, it's amazing. And there was a new comic that came out, Tales from the Dark Multiverse, which is just kind of like the new version of, I guess, Elseworlds, right? Because they don't do the Elseworlds imprint anymore, but the kind of Tale from the Multiverse is basically like Elseworlds. Like, what happens if Batman died after Nightfall? After Bane broke his back or something like that. That's basically what it is. And yeah, all these stories, they're pretty cool. So I highly recommend DC. But I've been reading, essentially, it's known as, I think it's Tower of X, and I think
Is it House of
and
X? No, that's the
House
old
of
one.
X.
Or is it?
No, they're the same.
Yeah.
Oh well, they're not the same. They're two different comics, but they're like they're all related. Like they make one big kind of long story arc, and essentially like it kind of is like Marvel's attempt to reintroduce the mutants into the new generation, and it's pretty cool because it's essentially all the mutants, or specifically Professor Xavier, works together with I think Doctor McTaggart,
Mm-hmm.
who's like kind of like a prominent character in the X-Men universe, and she kind of her ability is like she every time she dies, like she's reborn and she keeps all her memories of stuff that's happened in the past, and so she works with the X-Men to try and get rid of the future kind of Sentinels threats, like the Sentinels being the kind of futuristic man-made AI weapons used to hunt and kill mutants that you also see in X-Men Days of Future Past. That's like what the comic is like, based off the comics Days of Future Past. And after they solve that, they're like, hey, you know what? We're gonna make a new island it's like Krakoa, which is like a living mutant island, and it's like we're making a new nation. It's going to be a mutant nation, and basically they're working with like all the bad guys, all the good guys, and they're like telling the world, hey, we're a sovereign nation, and if you don't identify us as like a sovereign nation, you're basically going to be our enemy. It's a pretty dope comic because it's just kind of like, hey, this is the new status quo, and it's very
Just
unforgiving
deal with
about
it.
it. And yeah, and it's like everybody's on board. That's the kind of interesting part about it, because you do have Xavier working with Magneto, working with Apocalypse, working with Mr. Sinister, like all these kind of classic X-Men characters and villains, kind of all working together under the goal of, hey, we're gonna work on making a mutant nation again, and just kind of seeing what's coming out from it. So yeah, it seems interesting. We'll see where it goes going forward, and whether I'm gonna actually read, like, because I think X-Men 1 is either coming out or out. We'll see if I'll watch the rest. But yeah, I haven't seen like, yeah, she yeah, as you said, like Zoe, she's like in Mad Max Fury Road, the Divergent series. She voiced Catwoman in Lego Batman.
Okay, then
Uh,
I feel like that was the like, okay, fine, you can do it. You did Lego
she
Batman.
was she was she was the voice of Mary Jane Watson in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, so she gets
So
roles. Just that I feel like yeah, not many people know her like as her or like her face. Like yeah, so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, initially I thought she was like related to Lenny Kravitz because I don't know any
no,
like
she
kind of
is. She
family.
is.
Oh, she actually
She's the
is.
daughter.
Oh, okay. Ah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I'll take it.
You're
Fantastic.
like, okay then, cha-ching. But yeah, I don't know. We still like Ron Patterson's still the Batman, right? Like as far as we know, so
Mm-hmm.
I guess interesting pairing, and it looks like they're kind of skewing. Like they're not really old, but like they are older in real life, but they look relatively young. Saying like Ron Patterson, so maybe they're doing a. It feels like a just on the top end of like the like low end of like 30. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's what they're kind of
Yeah,
trying to do.
because it's saying that Zoe's 30 and then Robert Patterson's 33. So yeah, so they're kind of like in the you know, round about the same age. But they're like, yeah, it's obviously like a going to be a Batman, like not quote unquote prime, but like a little bit after his prime. So we'll see where it goes going forward. But yeah, I mean, interesting casting decision. We'll see. Because usually they'll have like a big name be like these major characters. You know what I mean? Michelle Pfeiffer,
Haley
and stuff like that.
Berry and
Yeah, how
Anne
yeah, yeah.
Hathaway.
Well, Anne Hathaway, yeah, I'll give it Anne Hathaway. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer is like the queen, like the best Catwoman we have, but we'll have to see whether they do a good job. But speaking of like kind of Batman related news, uh, Joker made over like 500 like $1,000, 500 million. Sorry,
500,000. I'd be like, oh,
500.
jeez.
Yeah, oy boy, yeah, but 500 million over 500
And it's
million.
in the US, it's like a R-rated movie, so it's like,
Yeah,
geez, like good,
exactly.
well done. Like the only things that really hit that for like is like even Deadpool 2 is like only hit around maybe like 700 million. I don't know.
I think it's technically um did better than Venom, right, in its opening. But like,
Oh,
yeah,
it
like
did
I'm
better in
really
Venom in its opening, yeah, because like, but overall, I think Venom got to like 1 billion, so it's like we'll see.
well, yeah, but that's because Venom's like I don't know, it's a joke of a movie. It's like I kind of understand why the film did well. It's just like it's kind of a bit sad that it did so well. But yeah, I'm really happy to see Joker did well. Like 500 million. I think its budget was like 50 million,
Yeah, it's
so
around
it's
that
made at
50,
least
60 million, and so it's like it's paid dividends quite a bit, and that's what I'm
and
saying.
it's
Like,
and it's still in the cinemas at least around here. So it's gonna hopefully make more money over time, and hopefully we get like more.
I
Uh,
feel like yeah, they're skewing into it. Like, I think people the the whole thing of just like a multiverse type of thing is not really out of the like question. Like they could easily do like yeah one offs or whatever it is, and I think it's just like you can have these things where it's like yeah it's just it is what it is, and you don't have to be like what's it related to? Where I think
yeah,
I
yeah,
saw a
like
really funny meme
having
where it's like the Marvel fanboys see Joker is like where's the quippy one liners? Where's the special effects? Why is there no post credit scene? Like they're all confused. It's just like
it's really funny because the thing is like a lot of these movies do have kind of CG and stuff. It's just like a lot of it is just like really like quote unquote practical CG because I remember they were running. I think it was the director was kind of describing like the opening scenes, and he's just like pointing out like using like a pen, and he's like, oh, all this part, all CG. The rest of it, was filmed on set or whatever. So it's like it's there, but it's just like it's trying to. A lot of modern CG is like trying to not make it look like CG,
yeah,
rather than
instead
kind
of
of
just
big
like
boom.
making it more look realistic, because like even people like for example like David Fincher uses CG all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
what is it? What is it? The Social Network. There's like
Mm-hmm.
those shots where like it goes through a bookcase into like a sink or whatever. Like there's shot that's all CG, or even things of like I know in the Social Network the Winklevoss twins, played by
Mm-hmm.
Arnie Hammer. All they did is like literally Photoshop his face on a body doubles actor, like body doubles face, and
Oh.
that's how they achieve the effect of them being look like they're twins, and so it's like that's practical CG in a sense of just like you're utilizing CG more than just being like we want to have a monster. It's more like we want to like can make this thing create into a different world. So I feel like yeah
Oh, right. Yeah. Now they can just use Snapchat. You know what I mean?
yeah you
Like,
got those filters going on.
but yeah, like I mean, it's cool. Like it kind of that kind of reminds me of I forget which Terminator it was. But one of the
It would be
Terminators.
Genesis. It's the one where they de-aged Arnold.
No, not the de-aging Arnold, but I think it must have been the one like before that, where like they actually fight a Terminator that looks like Arnold, but like a really young
Oh, that
Arnold.
was
But then
Salvation. Yeah.
Salvation, but then it was like maybe like a minute into the fight, like the skin gets melted off, and then it actually looks like a regular
Because they're
Terminator
just
or
like,
whatever.
yeah, this budget, guys. That was
I,
10 years ago, and technology's improved in 10 years, so they can do
that's
that now.
true. Oh, by the way, I think they released Terminator in the new Mortal Kombat game, and that looks really dope because it actually has that. Like if one of the characters like burns off the Terminator's skin or uses fire, like it actually melts off, and then next minute you're playing as like the
T100.
skinless T100 or T1000 or whatever it is. So that's really cool. Just as a side note, but yeah.
No, that's
Looking
good.
forward to Joker doing well going forward. But I guess we'll start talking about. It's a good segue for our CW,
CW verse. Let's go.
TV verse. I guess we'll talk about Batwoman because that's like the big show that came out. Although, from my understanding, like I remember reading and looking online, like people have apparently been review bombing the show, or there's been alleged review bombing.
You never know these
Coordinated.
days.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. It's kind of funny how like coordinated review bombing is looked at as, oh, like it's a bad thing and it's not indicative of the product and whether it's good or not. But then when you have like mass like praise of a movie or mass kind of people coming in and reviewing positively of a movie, you don't have the same kind of criticisms from these reviewers or someone. Like they're not going to be like, oh well,
Oh man, all these critics seem to really love this, and all these people really seem to love it. Like, how dare they?
but we should. Yeah, I mean, look,
it's like you can't be negative anymore. Like, that's like, yeah, sure. Like some people can just unfairly review it or like whatever it is. Like they just like, yeah, I'm not gonna watch it, but negative review. But you're allowed to have negative opinions on certain things. Like,
yeah, and look, honestly, I'm not a big fan of like the whole notion of, oh, okay, like yeah, Batwoman is centered around a lesbian. I'm going to give it a negative review. Like if people are going into it like that, then that's pretty shitty. I'm not a big fan of that. But like Batwoman has other problems, that that's independent of like, I guess the sexual orientation of the main character. So yeah, like I think if you're gonna have criticism, voice it in like a coherent way, because otherwise they're just gonna, otherwise nobody's gonna take the critique seriously. And I get, we'll go into it a little bit now. Like, what's your initial impressions of Batwoman? Because there's been 2 episodes at the time of recording.
That's the thing. I don't think I don't. I'll. It's 8 episodes, and I don't know if there's gonna be a season 2, but I might as well just like kind of watch in the end. But I'm kind of. It's one of those things that I might put in the background and watch because I don't know. I'm not really feeling the vibe of this show. Like, there's some cool, interesting concepts. Like for example, like it's not really a spoiler that you find out that the main villain is her sister. So there's like at least some like family conflict on it.
Okay, so this is my problem with it, right?
Here we go.
So, well, okay, so here's the thing. I actually like the Batwoman character in the comics, although I'm not personally too familiar with the character. In the comics, yes, quite similarly to the TV series. Yes, she is like the cousin of Bruce Wayne, specifically from I think the mother's side of the family. She obviously. The basis of the TV show is, she comes back. The main character, Kate Kane. She finds out that her, I guess, ex-lover, back when she was in the military, got kidnapped, and she comes back to Gotham to try and find out what happened to her. And in the process, gets caught up with the new bad guy in town because Bruce Wayne has been missing for the past 3 years. It's not really, they don't know why. And the thing is, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that even the showrunners right now don't have a explanation to why Bruce Wayne isn't around. And I think that's a big mistake. That's like Star Wars, the new Disney Star Wars level
We'll
of
write it later
yep.
when we come to that point, like type of thing.
Like it just sounds like a huge mistake because if you don't have a reason, it's gonna bite you in the ass down the line where they'll have to retcon this or not explain this properly. I'm totally
And also
fine.
the problem with that is in the show they keep on referencing Batman. Like obviously they have to like it's one of those things where it's like you kind of have to almost or like it
Oh well, you can't.
because it's Batman. But the thing is, it's
Yeah.
just like it makes it even a big glaring hole. Like I know that they're probably never gonna resolve that issue. They just only wrote that issue that Batman's gone purely to be like, yeah, that's the only reason why she found the Batcave and get the outfit. There's like no other reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I kind of felt like the first episode, like they're just rushing through everything because she finds the cave like almost immediately. There's, I don't mind the Lucius Fox's son, Luke Fox, because in the comics he ends up becoming a Batman character as well. So like he's a superhero who wears like I think he's called Batwing, and he wears at least in the New 52 he basically wears what's essentially like the prototype suit that eventually becomes the suit in Batman Beyond. So I kind of like that being like a reference point. Like it's always a reference in Batman, like that eventually the suit becomes the suit in Batman Beyond. So I always like the kind of small little references there. So we'll see if that actually becomes the case in this show, where he eventually kind of dons a suit of some kind. But yeah, I kind of found that like Kate Kane ends up finding like the Batcave like this, especially given that like there's all this initial.
There's a lot of initial setup with all these characters that they're trying to introduce, and
Mhm.
it feels relatively rushed. Like in another TV show, they'd give them like I don't know, they'd be exploring a little bit more different themes and things, kind of like maybe episode 2 or 3. But this one,
Well,
it basically throws like literally episode 1 is like everything you need to know about like Kate Kane. It's like here's about her ex lover, here's where she works at, here's about her like her relationship with her dad. Like it's kind of like we're gonna throw all this information at you at the start and then going from there rather than like slowly building up and having these character
well,
moments.
no, I think the thing is like they kind of have like a pretty interesting setup for like she hates Batman at the beginning, but the thing is it's immediately um something that's thrown away. Like and maybe it's because like I'm used to see WTV shows kind of holding on to this drama grudge, but unfortunately because this show is only for 8 episodes, did you say? They
Mm-hmm.
can't stick with the drama too much because typically it would be like, oh, she'd be hating Batman
For half
for
the
like 3 or
season,
4,
and then all of a sudden
or
something bad will happen, and then it's like, nah, you were right.
yeah. But the thing is, like, there's a realization immediately because essentially, her mother, and her sister died in a car crash, and Batman had initially, quote unquote, saved their lives, by like getting a grappling hook, but then the grappling hook failed, and only Kate Kane managed to survive the car crash. And so she's held like this deep resentment for Batman and hated him for only saving her. But she didn't know that Batman was her cousin Bruce Wayne. Now that actually makes it, it's kind of like in the typical fashion because like in Supergirl there's like a very similar story plot where Lana Luthor, um, like at one stage hated Superman, but still was friends with Supergirl's alternative identity. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, like it's really awkward because she hates the other side of me, who's kind of like the real me, And so in this way, like they had that, but then it immediately disappears within the first episode, to the point where you question why even have that. Like this is what I'm saying. Like if it's not like a point of tension that's going to come back later, it's like immediately resolved, and then she's donning the suit. Which, by the way, kind of the suit that she's wearing now, at least the helmet aspect, really reminds me of the Batman suit from like Batman Begins and Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, it's got that
that?
look. It's got that look to it. However, I was gonna talk about the bat suit, like actual bat. When there's a flashback with Batman, I did not like that. I'm like, okay, it looked obviously they're trying to cut out because like they obviously didn't cast a Batman, or they didn't like necessarily have 100% look of the bat suit, so that's why it kind of looks like a little bit weird. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like on her, yeah, it looks okay, but yeah, with the flashback with the Batman, I'm like, I don't know, like the Gotham one looked better. You know.
Yeah, look, that's the thing. I think obviously, like the suit kind of looks pretty plain, but I think it also opens up for them to be like, oh hey, like Batman, like did you really think this was the only suit Batman had, and that he just
He's
has
got the
like
aqua suit.
30
He's got the
suits?
fire suit. He's got the suit that
Exactly,
has like all this other stuff for toys.
exactly, exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised if like they discover more and then adapt the tech for Batwoman or whatever. But yeah, right now she's kind of like in the early, I guess, Daredevil stages where she's kind of still using bat like Batman's suit, but eventually she'll don like the red hair and all that jazz. Look, Ruby Rose is doing an okay job.
Yeah,
I kind of like.
her accent sometimes breaks here and there, but she's just, it's just I know you could do better. Like I'm hoping you can at least do better, but because that's the thing. You compare her to like, someone like Oliver Queen, I forgot his name, Stephen Amell, where he really does drive the show and he really does deliver on a lot of these emotional beats. I feel like Ruby Rose at the current moment, she's not delivering. I guess more emotion that I thought she could have. Like really believing these scenes that she did lose a sister. There should be more emotion in that. Like give me more emotion, people.
Also, just as a side note, we mentioned before how and we found out that the White Rabbit is her sister, and it's like within the first episode that they make the connection there, and I'm like, man, they really should have left that till later. But I guess like again, like if it's purely because it only has like a short season, I can kind of understand why that's the case, but it just feels so rushed.
Yeah, there's a lot of rush stuff because like even in episode 2, they meet up and they confirm it instead of like this like, is she really? I don't know. Like episode 2, right at the gate, they like meet each other, being like, yeah, I'm actually your sister. So like, what's up? Like,
yeah, it is weird. Like there is this kind of tension of is she lying, and is it actually like some random chick who's taken up her sister's identity, and is that going to be the big twist? And I think if that ends up being the big twist, like that's going to be even more weird. And
not only that, but like the White Rabbit character, like I don't know about it in the comics, I have no idea, but like the way the actress is playing it's just like you're basically like a female Joker. Like this is kind of what you're kind of dealing with. Like I don't know what's interesting about you aside from you being kind of crazy and a little bit like out there. that's
yeah,
the vibe I
mean,
get.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, from the White Rabbit in DC Comics, like I remember her appearing in like the New 52, like right at the beginning of like the Batman series, but then like there wasn't really anything much done with her afterwards. So it is very much like kind of somewhat scraping the bottom of the barrel of Batman villains. And the thing is, like I guess like the White Rabbit like is also kind of a like an analogous character, not necessarily to the Joker, but also Jervis Tetch, who's also I want to say the Mad Hatter villain, who I'm forgetting. But yeah, who's like obsessed with like Alice in Wonderland and stuff. So that's kind of also the vibe that I guess you're supposed to get with her character. But we'll see where it goes forward. But yeah, at the moment it's kind of had like a pretty weak start. So we'll see if it kind of picks up later. I hope it gets better because I didn't mind her in the like how they had the crossover between like Arrow, Flash, and
Yeah.
Supergirl. I
I
like
feel like
her in that.
yeah, I feel like it might be one of those things where she probably works better in like an ensemble cast rather than like a something
Or in a
focused purely. Yeah.
or in like a pure or like maybe in like a pure action scenario, like maybe that's it. But then I guess it's all just like stunt doubles at
Well,
that
that's the thing.
stage.
You never know. She could be like, yeah, she's basically like the Hulk almost, where in the DC universe, where it's like, yeah, Solar it might not work, but hey, like if you're with, maybe you can join the Legends of Tomorrow team. Like that's
No, I don't think that's happening. There's no way that they're gonna put Batwoman in Legends of Tomorrow. She's a frontline character. There's no way that's gonna happen.
never say never,
At least
right?
not anytime. No, I highly doubt it. Unless the season tanks, they're probably just not gonna do any more Batwoman. That's probably what's more likely to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also been watching Supergirl for season 5.
Yeah.
Um,
I've
and
heard you're you're a big fan of this show. It's getting up there. You're like in comparison to
well,
like Flash and Arrow and all that. Like where do you rank that? By the way.
look, when I say I'm a fan, like season 4 was good. Just because, well, it sucked towards the end because I think they just had a lot of good ideas, but they didn't have a good way to kind of they didn't have a good way to cohesively put it all together. Just because, like, again, there's a lot of like I guess modern comparisons to the shows which things that are happening in real life, right? Like for example, I don't know if you've been watching Black Lightning,
No,
which is also
I kind of stopped watching that midway through season 2.
okay. Yeah, so in Black Lightning, like they do have a lot of kind of references to I guess some of the stuff that's happening in America with I guess like comparisons to like illegal like I guess I what is it, illegal immigrants, I guess undocumented immigrants, like there's all these kind of words for them, but I guess people who are not supposed to be in the country being detained by I guess border patrol. And so there is like there's like analogous things that are happening in Black Lightning that's supposed to be a representation of what's happening in the real world. Very much in the same way for season 4 of Supergirl, there's like a comparison to I guess foreign nations that like European nations that are basically Russia, um, influencing the American elections and like collusion and stuff like that, which
Mm-hmm.
is obviously a reference to I guess like all the stuff that's happening in America with like Trump and all that. Um, but the thing is, there's like a lot of really villains. They had Agent Liberty, who was like a character who was essentially radicalized because of all the alien invasions that were happening around him due to Supergirl basically revealing her identity. And so, because of the fact that, because of her, more or less, the his town, or I guess his city, his area.
His area he patrols.
Well, he doesn't. He wasn't. He was originally a teacher, but essentially he lost his job, and then he lost his house. Was in the middle of like one of the major attacks on I see. I keep thinking it's Metropolis, but it's not Metropolis. He was there for a lot of it, and he kind of sees that all these quote unquote aliens, which are obviously supposed to be a reference to like obviously illegal or undocumented aliens. You see, I feel like I'm saying the wrong thing, like, and because of all the like
I think people know.
political.
I think people know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. So and obviously it's like supposed to be a one-to-one comparison. So they had a lot of really cool ideas, and at the same time they also had Lex Luthor. They introduced, they got an actor to play Lex Luthor, and he was excellent. as Lex Luthor. But towards the end of season 4, um, Lex Luthor he dies, but spoilers. But in his kind of last kind of act as being an asshole like Lex Luthor is, he basically reveals to Lana Luthor that, oh, by the way, your best friend, she's been lying to you, and she's actually Supergirl. And so now it's kind of slowly becoming to the point where Lana Luthor is the main villain this season. Um, but it's in secret because Supergirl has revealed her identity to Lana now. It's like it's kind of the crux of the first episode where she gets a new suit. Not a big fan of the new suit. It kind of seems like, again, there's like a distinction between Supergirl and Superman in terms of like their suit. At this stage, it's like, well, now we're just giving the suit to Superman. But obviously, it is a more practical suit than Supergirl flying around in a skirt. But I think that's like an iconic outfit for Supergirl. So in my head, it makes sense that her suit is like that. It's way better than the what is it? The New 52 suit, which was like basically a bathing suit. So yeah, we'll see where this season goes. Like, there's like introduction of like virtual reality and how people are becoming like addicted to all of that. So, we'll see where things go forward. It's not like I don't think it's going to have me as excited as season 4. Season 4 is probably the best season of Supergirl, and it's probably not going to get as good since then. That's my prediction. But I can be proven. Again, I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Hey, maybe they'll do some interesting stuff once the Crisis event happens. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually one character that got introduced in Supergirl because of the Monitor, who is now like kind of like a background villain.
He's like the Doomsday Samuel L. Jackson of like the DC like thing, where he's just going to every single one of these shows, being like, "Hey guys, what's up? Stuff's gonna happen."
I'm gonna fuck your world. Your world. I'm gonna fuck it up a little bit because there's some bad shit that's gonna happen. Yeah, I mean that's definitely the case. But we'll see. If it kind of turns out to be any good. But yeah, Supergirl. I think like after the last season, it has like a really high bar to me, with me at least. And I don't expect it to actually reach it. But
hey, that's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. But again, I'm proven wrong. Another show that we've both been watching is The Flash.
Yes, Flashy Boy is back.
Yeah, The Flash. Well, it is. It's kind of funny. Like, a lot of shows, like, maybe I'll pass and not watch, but like every time, like, a new CW TV show, it's like my Bold and the Beautiful. Like, some of it's trash, but I need to watch it because that's my kind of drama shows that I watch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like it's enjoyable. It's not gonna. It's kind of like it's just it's like normal type of food almost, where it's like it's not really self-sustaining. Like, it's kind of okay, but it's nothing amazing, but it's nothing like too crap at the same time. And I feel like it's just average type of thing, and it does the job to just entertain. Yeah, with this kind of like first 2 episodes, Barry basically comes in, talking about how like the Monitor comes in. He's like, yeah, you're probably gonna like
you're gonna die.
So like, get your shit together. So yeah, he's trying to figure out what he's gonna do, and it's obviously a setup for the Crisis event or what's gonna happen. I find it very interesting that like, we'll talk in a minute how like Arrow and Flash, the Monitor both says, yeah, you're both gonna die, which is kind of like, that's not gonna happen. Like, clearly not is gonna happen as far as I know. Or like, they might do a thing where, because what you see in episode 2, he meets Jake Garrett and and kind of do this like a weird psychic, well, not really psychic thing, some science thing.
Essentially, in the future. Yeah, he sends his mind into the future in order to try and figure out what happened.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, no. I was just saying that like he works with Jay Garrick to send his mind into the future to find out what happens. Which is kind of really weird because, again, like, why would because there's a barrier of antimatter which is preventing him from going forward into time, but it kind of confuses me. Like, why would he be able to send his mind into the future and not his his consciousness, but not his
Maybe it's a
physical body?
yeah.
It
Maybe
doesn't
I
make
don't know.
sense.
Who knows? Either way, they needed
I'm
some
sure.
sort
I'm
of
sure.
they needed a way to injure him at the point of time. But the whole thing is what I got from that is that there's he said he watched it like the future different like 1,000 different futures and they're all kind of the same.
No, he literally said a billion,
Okay, a
billion
billion.
different futures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming like maybe the monitor's like yeah you die in this one but not in that one. But I don't know. I don't know. Like
Well, no. So essentially, what happens is he goes into because he needs to find out. He's got this obsession to find out, like, is there a solution where he can save everyone without dying? But he sees ability. He does a he does a what is it like a Doctor Strange and sees a billion different futures. And the only one where everybody survives is the one where he ends up dying. Again, very similar to the events of I think Crisis on Infinite Earths, where the Flash Barry Allen does give up his life to save everyone. So that's obviously what it's a reference to. Again, Crisis makes sense. But at the one thing that really kind of rubbed me the wrong was later on he like mentions that he basically is suffering from PTSD for all intents and purposes, and he's like talking to Iris, and he's like, "Oh, there's like, I have to die in order for this to work. Like, there's no like I've seen millions, I've seen you die, I've seen everybody on the crew die, blah blah blah." And she's just like, "Get over it." The Barry I know wouldn't know.
it's always
She's
the theme of this episode was resolve. You know.
oh, I look, I kind of over time, Iris as a character has made the show worse. Just because it's like, yeah, suck it up, Barry. I'm the one who's okay to be upset at you. All right, like she's upset at him for giving up, but it's like you literally haven't seen a billion futures where everybody fucking died. Like that's my one problem with that scene. It's like she's more upset that he's giving up. It's like let him be fucking sad that like he's seen people around. Like it just doesn't make sense that people wouldn't be sympathetic to what he's going through. It seems to be a common theme in the Flash where it's like Barry is wrong, and everybody else around like everybody shits on Barry even though he ends up being like right in some respect.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's like he does the hard decisions that the team needs to make, but like everyone's like, nah, that's not the right way. Like I can kind of see that, like where it's like, come on, Barry, that's not the right way, type of thing.
mhm.
And it like, I can see that, I can see that, but it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
a side note, I'm a big fan of the new suit. The new suit's pretty dope.
yeah. They didn't they add the they basically did a whole Iron Man with the whole like Java's voice talking, where it's like we're gonna give you notes, but isn't that kind of the same thing of like I forgot his name, but the Cisco, like that was his
Yeah,
whole
Cisco.
role. So and I did hear like I don't know like a year ago or whatever it is like that he wants to be less involved in the show, so maybe he
Well,
will
that's
die in the crisis part, or like maybe they want to be like
it's
yeah you don't have to record like your lines or whatever.
it's weird. Like they've clearly depowered him from last season, but then we see him like wearing the I guess suit to like blast people,
The
to
vibe suit.
vibe people and stuff. So it's like, okay, maybe he like re-becomes a meta. And okay, and then there's another plot with Caitlin, working with the, I forget the like I guess the Indian doctor friend, right?
Yeah.
Who's like straight. I'm pretty sure this story is from the story that this is based off is a new I want to say a rebirth story because I think I remember seeing this villain introduced at one stage. Like he's got like this kind of cool blood power, but yeah, and basically like his mother died of disease, and he's come up with like, and he also suffers from the disease, but he needs dark matter in order to stabilize it. And Caitlin's like, no, you're fucking crazy. We're not giving people matter because they might become metas. So I'm kind of confused. Like, don't they have a metahuman cure? Like, what's wrong with giving like obviously
If
like
you have a cure, then what's the problem?
well, I was thinking about it like maybe it's like oh like if we cure them, it's reliant on the dark matter, and if you cure it, then the cure for their blood disease doesn't work. I was thinking that might be the case, but I don't know. Like it's obviously this kind of wibbly wobbly science that's that conveniently works the plot as the plot intends it to,
Well,
right?
that's the thing.
Um,
I feel like that's probably the worst part about this season so far. It just seems to be that side plot with that guy, because I don't know where it's going with it.
Yeah, well, I think this is what's happening with the show. So essentially, the first half of the season will be focused on the crisis event, and then the second half, after like Arrow sacrifices himself or whatever, and then the Flash is okay, then they resume the season, but then they have to face the threat of this vampire. Well, he's not a vampire, but like yeah, this
This blood
bloodbender.
dude.
He's a bloodbender, right? Like I don't know. Oh, well, that was from Avatar, right? The Legend of Korra. There was like a blood bending is like one of the kind of special kind of bending that people could do. Or maybe it wasn't the original. I don't know. Did you watch Legend of Korra?
Yeah, I did. I just don't remember much.
There was like this special, like, because I think there's like special kind of bending, and one of the kind of bending was blood bending. So like you could control, like as a waterbender, you could like you could control people by controlling the water through their blood. And so yeah, he's basically a bloodbender. He's like moving around blood as like a weird, I don't know, spiky device, or like kind of like Carnage. I don't know. I don't know much about this villain, like other than what the show is. So we'll see. Again, it's good to see a villain that isn't a speedster for once.
Yes.
Because it's usually the case. Like, oh, hey, what are we going to give Barry to fight? A speedster? Maybe not.
And that's why it was
Um,
kind of interesting to have the it wasn't Brainiac, it was the other one. I forgot his name.
big
The
brain guy.
Yeah, the brain guy in the chair.
Well, you see, yeah, the big brain guy in the
The
chain,
monitor? No.
the
Was it?
thinker. No, the monitor is the dude going around everywhere. I think
Yeah.
it's called like the thinker or whatever.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that villain. You see, again, they start off the villain so well, but then it's like, oh, let's just make him extra crazy, and then it all kind of falls apart. That's what happened in Supergirl as well. Like Agent Liberty is like, oh, hey, the president of the United States was a secret alien. Oh yeah, that pretty much just like they kind of have a good reason for why people have an anti-alien movement in this Supergirl universe, because an alien basically faked being a human to then become the president of the United States. That then led to them having to have like an emergency election, and electing some guy who was essentially supposed to be like an analog to Donald Trump, right? And then it's like, oh, well, we got to get rid of this guy as well. And so now season 5 is like, oh, we got to elect a new person. So yeah, like again, there's a lot of good ways that you can kind of write villains and write just do general writing. But I think like a lot of these shows are written by like soap opera writers. You know what I mean? And that's why everything kind of drags on a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
they need to keep it going for the 24 episode structure, you know.
you see, I wonder if there's a like how like um, certain anime like there's like a cut that gets rid of all the kind of like the non-canon and the bloat. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if there's like if people can make like a cool version of like the Flash or Arrow where it's like you get rid of all the drama, you get rid of all the Felicity kind of shit, and you're just like it's all action, and then like it's all just like one big 3 hour epic or something. I'd love to see what a fan could like dedicatedly make that. But maybe that's just a pipe dream.
No,
Um,
I'm pretty sure some people can do that, and it's like yeah, it's a really good point when you raise that type of thing. It's like if you just go straight to the main story and the whole thing, it just makes it more tighter and kind of precise, and it's just like yeah, this would be on a higher level if they just got rid of it. But obviously, since it's on the CW, obviously have a less budget. But that's the thing. I feel like even even in the Flash, some of the special effects scenes that they show, I feel like the special effects have gone up a bit. I don't know about you, but I feel like it feels like like they put more money into it. But that,
Well,
yeah,
I think every season they generally get more. Like the problem is like the return on view is always diminishing, and that's obviously I think the reason why um, Arrow is obviously officially going to be ending. But it's kind of unfortunate because I feel like that's the one show that has improved over time.
mm,
Oh well, like it kind of dipped in season 4 or 5, but then it like 6 was good, 7 was like okay, and then I think now with season 8 or 9 or whatever, like they're kind of doing like the premise for the new season of Arrow is really cool. So maybe that's the reason why I'm a little bit biased because I'm really looking forward to what they do. Like what's the final kind of last hurrah of this character that it's kind of amazing that I've been watching the show for like almost 10 years,
mm. Yeah, it really
consistently.
is the end of an era. So you want to move to let's probably move
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to
Well,
let's
yeah,
move to the Arrow kind of review. It's only one episode. For some reasons, it's kind of skipped this week. Um, but yeah, the episode premiere episode is basically kind of a return to old school. I guess Arrow, pretty much like doing the same thing as the first episode because he goes to a different world because of the monitor to find the forgot the exact thing, but it's a special thing. It's a special source.
yeah. The whatever the
It's the MacGuffin. It's
MacGuffin.
the MacGuffin of the
Yeah,
thing. So it is very interesting to see, people like Malcolm Merlin, his mom, his friend,
from
yeah,
from what
all
I
kind of come
understand.
back.
Well, from what I understand, it's actually set in Earth 2,
Mm.
and that's the reason. See, initially I was kind of confused, like because we see the Black Canary, or the Canary, or whatever, the Black Siren. Sorry, because that's who that character was, and initially I didn't know that was the case, but
Yeah,
yes, it is
me
actually.
as well because I think it gives you kind of like a shock. You're like, okay, what is this? What's going
Yeah,
on? Up
yeah,
until
because she's
later on
like
when they explain it.
yeah, well, I don't think they really do. Like, other than the fact that, like, oh, like like she recognizes Arrow and is like, "What the hell are you doing on my world?" I don't even remember her, like, being on that world. Maybe it happened like last season and I wasn't paying attention, where they're just like, "Hey, we're gonna handball you off into this other world now." But she's actually working with that universe's Adrian Chase, who was the villain in season 6, who is the Arrow or the Hood in that universe. So it's kind of funny because yeah, like you said, it's kind of reimagining the events of the first season, but using old characters. Because I think Tommy Mellon is like the bad guy
And he's
in that.
alive. Like it kind of gave me nostalgia, and I feel like that's what a lot of TV shows sometimes do, especially when they come to when it is coming to an end. It's
Mhm.
basically just like, yeah, there's like a big hurrah for the character in the end, and like the character and the whole TV show. So it's
The
kind of
thing,
it's bringing it back, like, and it is interesting to show things like that. And yeah, I really the episode that they had, I really enjoyed it just because I kind of like the premise of, like, I'm kind of sad that they kind of ripped it away so quickly, but I really like the premise of another world of the guy doing the exact same thing, kind of being trapped in between worlds of, like, you know which world do I prefer better, or things like that. They get rid of it very quickly, but it's like I wish they maybe had like an extra episode or two of it being
well,
inside
I
that
mean,
world.
to be fair, like there's probably a lot of alternate worlds that he's kind of going to go through. But I think, like, yeah, it is very much like, oh, I did like there were some scenes where it's, they do a callback to the first season. Like, for example, uh, like his mum hires Diggle to be his security guard, and when he tries to escape, like he did in the first season, the door's locked because the Diggle in the car is actually his Diggle from his universe.
Mm.
He's like, hey, that trick won't work on me twice. So yeah, it's really cool to see like throwbacks to old episodes, but in like with a new flavor. I think the thing that I found interesting is I think at the beginning of the episode, like where they show him on the island, and there's obviously a mask that used to be Deathstroke, but on the island it actually belongs to Batman. and I was like, oh, that's a really interesting take.
Take.
Does that mean Batman was on that island? Because in universe, I remember like because this would have been from an old Flash episode. I remember this, but essentially, it showed like on a TV or on a TV screen because the Hood in Earth 2 is actually Oliver Queen's dad, who gets who has to reveal his identity as the Arrow. It's like on like the TV screen when the Flash grows. So the Arrow and Oliver Queen in Earth 2 is actually dead. So that's why Stephen Amell's character plays Oliver, or can play Oliver in Earth 2, because Earth 2 Oliver Queen is dead and isn't alive. That's why it's like he's able to kind of slip into that role and take advantage, so to speak. So it's really cool. I like the set pieces. I like, obviously it's just going to be the monitor's telling me to do this, and then I'm going to interact with
you're gonna
some
go
characters.
back place to place to place, and it's kind of like a big showy thing. I don't know if they're gonna do something somewhat interesting, because the whole setup is for the crisis thing, but maybe they're gonna do something at the start where this Arrow thing kind of sets up something else. In a sense of like there could be an episode kind of like in Smallville, and then you see like
I think
someone else, and then when it comes to the crisis bit of the whole thing, they pop out because they're just like, okay, what's going on?
Well, I mean that's probably 100% what's going to happen. Like, either he's going to be hopping around like several different universes with different Supermen, but then like eventually when the actual crisis event happens, all the Superman characters obviously meet, and they're like, "Hey, you're a Superman," or whatever. So yeah, like it's cool. It's nice to see them like come together. Like I think the actress who plays Diggle's wife slash um the I guess the
Argus agent, yeah,
Argus CEO or whatever, or
like
leader.
Amanda Waller.
She
yeah, not really, no.
like the replacement for Amanda Waller. Like her character, I think was like on that Birds of Prey TV show, I believe, and she's like playing her old role. I think that's what's also happening.
Yeah,
so,
there's gonna be there's gonna be cool,
interesting
interesting stuff like that, and I feel like it's a really good, interesting take. Like they already did like the Mark Hamill for like Flash. I remember like what, 2 or 3 seasons. Trickster.
He was a trickster. Yeah,
and I feel like it's really good to have those like throwbacks. I feel like it's it's interesting how like it keeps the legacy going.
So I think ultimately, like, the Arrow show or this season is going to be like kind of like a love letter to like all old DC, and like them trying to bring back like all the old actors from all the old TV shows, and like kind of giving them an opportunity to kind of close out their role, and see what that looks like in the guise of a Arrow season, and getting Stephen Amell to do cool shit for the last season. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. The real question is, since we're all talking about the past, what do you feel about the future segments with the kid people?
Yep. Boring, and I don't care.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I feel like every other season that they've kind of shown them, like the last season where they showed them with, I feel like since it's done in flashbacks, you don't really get much of a taste of who these characters are, and I feel like in this, like from what I'm seeing, is like they're gonna try to focus on like, oh yeah, Felicity, Smoke and Oliver's like daughter is a little bit more rebellious, and the other one's kind of like a calm-headed one. But it's just like, where is this leading to, and what's the point?
Well, I mean, look, it's probably going to spin off to another show, and I'll probably watch it like begrudgingly just to see how they fuck it up even more. But like, yeah, it's all boring and it's all rushed. Like, ever since they stopped doing the flash forwards, I guess. Flashbacks. They've been doing flash forwards instead, and this is like way forward into the future. And yeah, unfortunately, like all the characters like kind of feel rushed, and they don't really get to do much. Like if you just kind of splice together all the little scenes, they probably don't even make up like an episode, right? Like
Yeah, you don't
of
really get
a
much
show.
character development of these characters. That's what I was kind of saying. They don't really have a personality or like,
And
yeah,
look, to be honest, like they can have some like interesting ideas. Like I like the idea that like the son of Bronze Tiger is actually the adopted son of Diggle, and he's like kind of the true, I guess, like not I guess mantle holder of like a superhero for Diggle, whereas Diggle's real son ends up becoming the leader of the Deathstroke gang or whatever.
mm,
So it's really interesting to see, like, oh, I wonder how all that happened. But it's like, do I care about this world? Not really, because unfortunately, like the like Star City in the future is like kind of really like dark and depressing. Um, there's not really much you can do with it. It's like, eh. It's like, do I care about this future city? Not really.
yeah.
Um,
They have to do something more interesting. I guess with the time period, because it's like, what's the point? I feel like they're just kind of like, it's like, to me it feels like a Mission Impossible thing almost, where it's like they're not really vigilantes
Also,
almost. They're just more infiltrating places and getting stuff. That's, I feel like, so far that's all we've really seen of them doing, instead of just being like, yeah, let's
here's
new villains.
here's the thing. Towards the end of the episode, we kind of see like the same kind of antimatter that Barry Allen interacted with in The Flash is actually like coming in and destroying Earth too. And by the end of the episode of Arrow, it destroys Earth too, and like they barely leave without with their lives. Um, the thing that I'm kind of confused about, like, you know, this kind of thing is something that they're going to have to struggle with as they go forward. It's like, is he just going to be going around recruiting random superheroes to his team? Because that kind of seems pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'd like to see
he's
more of that.
basically the superhero Noah's Ark. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
before your world turns to shit, come and help
yeah,
save my
come on,
fellow
yeah, come,
guys.
yeah, yeah. Well, you see, I think that's what it is. But we'll see if they're able to kind of keep up with all the star power because you don't want too many people in that proverbial suit. But yeah, like all the stuff that's happening with Earth One, I couldn't give a shit. But the one thing that doesn't make sense, okay, if Barry can't go into the future because in the future everything is hit by the antimatter, why are we getting a flash forward of the Team Flash in 20 whatever? Shouldn't that future not be destroyed?
Mm, I don't know.
Right? It should be. Well, if Barry can't go into the future because everything's destroyed in the future, why are we getting flash forwards of the future? Because the future should all be red. There should be just red in the
Red
future. We shouldn't be
everywhere.
seeing. That would be far more preferable than watching these like new heroes and all that. Like it's just boring. And, like, because unfortunately, like the new heroes are just like analogs of old heroes. They're not just, and there's nothing interesting that they're doing with them. All original CW characters, and they're not interesting. But